Good evening. Welcome to the Select Board meeting for April 4th, 2024. I'm going to start off with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, take action on seasonal alcohol license renewals for the Trustees of Reservations, NAMCAG Virtual Theater Festival, and the Boston Symphony Orchestra. I make a motion, we accept the alcohol license renewals.
Second,
All those in favor?
aye.
Aye. Appoint tenant board member to the Stockbridge Housing Authority, Beth Pichetti.
Motion
Picachi, how do you spell?
Yes.
Hi.
Well, good evening.
I'll make a motion, we appoint her.
Second,
All those in favor?
aye.
Aye. Approve the proposed cable television renewal license.
Motion approved. Unless there's any public comment.
Any public comment on that? Second, all those in
Second,
favor?
Aye.
Aye. So let's go right to the budget. Okay, we go to the chime tower update and use discussion.
So as probably as most people know, we had a company Verdinin who did the improvements to the bells, the playing instrument and everything else as part of the chime tower. That work has all been completed. The chimes were up and working, the bells, everything. The mechanical piece that connects to the bells is actually the clock operation. And then that triggers the bells to sound every hour. That piece is binding up. Now that piece is 170 years old and was in continual use until my understanding maybe a couple of years before COVID. Then it had gone to an intermittent use where they had interrupted the power supply. So it has a DC power supply that turns a piece. And when we got it back up and running, we have the gears are starting to strip out. And I had Verdin come back, they took a look at it, but that's actually not their expertise in the clocks, it's the bells. The bells are functioning fine, it's actually the mechanical piece. So there's a couple things that we can consider. They did take a look at it, they examined it, they gave me a couple options that we can consider moving forward. One is try to get a precision machinist to replace the pieces. These pieces cannot be just bought in a store. Somebody would have to recreate with the actual drive mechanisms. The piece that in there is an hour tone one, so it does sound every hour. What they did is they would interrupt the power supply and then start it back up. I know that the person was there did not recommend that. If you do get it back up and running, it's better to just have it work the way it should, sounding every hour. Now there is two things. We might not be able to fix it where we can get it back to running. Most of those mechanical pieces that are that old actually don't operate anymore. A lot of them been disconnected so that you have the mechanical piece there. One of the options is that you can install an electrical programmable sounder that will sound the bell, still leaving the mechanical piece in there. But we haven't fully explored that. The recommendation was to contact a precision machine shop, see if somebody could recreate the gears if we want to get it operating the way it was operating 170 years ago. So
Can we just take a step back? Because I don't think that the mechanics are why everyone's here tonight. We have really two issues. We have one is the question of playing the chimes from apple blossom to apple fall. And how often and for how long do we want to, if at all, play the chimes? And the second is the playing of the sounding of the bell on the hour, 24 hours a day. Do we want to continue doing that all day? You mentioned the power being interrupted. The reason for that, I assume, is that they weren't playing at night at some point. And,
that was only a recent development.
Right, I'm just saying, but it suggests that this has been a conversation we've had here before. So the question on the playing of the hourly bells is, do we want them to play at all? Do we want them to play every hour? Or do we want them to play on certain hours a day? And if so, is there a way to do that? So,
Right, which is what I was referring, right, I'm only tackling the first part, which is We have two options as far as the sounding of the bells. One is to put in an electrical control, which would allow us to have variable sounding of the hour bell, which would allow us to either set it to do certain hours of the day, say 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., or just multiple times in the day, whatever we wanted. We could then program it and have it available at any of those times. Or do we want to restore the mechanical component, understanding that if we could restore the mechanical component, it would be sounding every hour. So those are the two sort of options, with an understanding that we may not be able to get the mechanical part working.
Yeah,
The way-
my recommendation would be to not even pursue a mechanical part. It'd be too expensive, too much, you could spend a lot of money and not have it work. And then you're stuck having it every hour. You interrupt the power, like I said, it's just going to cause issues down the road. If you go with the electronic one, then we can adjust it as needed. So if we say we decide to go through the night and it doesn't work, we can change it just by programming it without going through any hassle.
I'm for that.
And we can change it from anything. No,
Does that ring the actual bell or does it, is it a?
yeah, or it's the bell.
Tone?
No,
The bell.
the electronic control would be for the striker to sound the bell.
Yeah.
So the bell itself would be being sound.
Not really, we can adjust it anytime. We have,
So-
people say they don't want it at night, we can change it. Then down the road, they want it at night, we can change it.
But
But we have to
but that's
find
the
out-
conversation I think we should have to start with is what do the folks in the neighborhood? I think that the choice is none, all, or some of the above. And we're just talking about the bells first.
But you gotta have the electronic part.
I get that, but let's engineer it after we decide what we're going to do. That would be my suggestion, just, and also I was there at the Verdon meeting and it sounded like that they thought it could be, I'm not suggesting we do this, but it sounded like that just tightening up the gears might solve the skipping problem.
Well, I spoke to him after, I know he was looking at that and he had further looking at it, is that tightening up would help in the short term. But the gears themselves have started to wear, so we would actually need to look at replacing that other piece, so.
Well,
Okay, just state your name and,
Where
Speak
you,
loudly because people can't hear.
Jane Ryan and 2 Main Street. No, I just think this would be a brilliant solution to have control over the times that it rings. And, we're full force in that middle of that sound and it's unbearable at night. So particularly the 12.
yeah. Name and,
I'm John Bishop. We're new residents at 8 Church Street. You'll know my wife Wendy, who's out of town with grandchildren, right?
oh, welcome to town.
Thank you very much. And I'd like to add, it was my grandfather was the rector at St. Paul's when I was a little boy. And I have memories of hearing chimes concerts with my grandmother and a salmon moose picnic. Also, I'm a pipe organ builder and I have deep experience with organ chimes and tower chimes. And what you're saying about the digital option, I'd like to flesh in a little bit. Because there are digital options that are sophisticated enough that the chimes could ring, and by the way, we're in favor of every hour. The chimes could ring every hour, but between 10 and 7,
Yeah,
they could ring softer.
oh,
These machines can be programmed to do very, very sophisticated things. And
so it'll be a nice option.
as a pipe organ builder, I'm interested in historic
What's
preservation.
nice about that is, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Go ahead. I don't mean to cut you off.
I'm interested in historic preservation, but I'm also interested in the practical use of ancient instruments. And the installation of a machine like that would allow a much more complicated discussion about when the bells,
Nuance.
when they shouldn't and how loud they should ring. They certainly were ringing louder after they were installed.
Well, they're probably working a little more efficiently. They weren't falling down,
Powerful solar.
they were swinging instead of falling.
As I was watching, I was talking with the people as the as the machine was being installed and understanding the equipment they were installing. It was very powerful bell striking. And we would have the option
So,
with this kind of equipment,
yeah,
just simply to try it
yes, the option, if we,
a couple of.
I mean, we got to do this option. I don't see it, but we can try it with the lower tones at night.
Yeah.
And then if that doesn't work, we can
Have another meeting.
have another meeting and cut it or turn them down or, so this could be a nice work and nice to have you guys come in every other month and visit us and say, let's try this and that.
Brent had his hand up.
If I may, which is it would reflect well on the town if the clock kept good time.
Well,
always.
that's going to be fixed
That's
too.
part of the
Yes,
mechanic,
so
the
That's the next,
electrical.
that's the next
Just
phase.
so you're aware, the next phase is the fixing of the cupola and the clock. So we fixed the bells and the playing instrument for the bells has all been repaired. The clock mechanism and the clock, the whole wooden structure at the top is the next phase that will be being done. And then the final phase will be the restoration of some of the mortar work. And then the chime tower will be good for the next, however long. It'll need tender loving care again.
Hi, Brent Damro, 4 Main Street. I think the folks who live the closest to said bell tower. I do think that it's critically important that we raise the issue that the bells are not just slightly louder, they are significantly louder. We would like to share some of the decibel readings from even inside our house, which I think are outside what one would accept. I think we have to ask the question too of why. I work in an industry that cherishes history, that looks back thousands of years to look at stories that matter for us today. With all due respect, I think we have to ask the question of why, if we're right now just talking about the chiming of the hour, what is the purpose of the chiming of the hour? And does it actually serve a purpose overnight other than because, quote, we have always done it? It is a major impediment to quality of life in our household. I know we're eventually going to talk about the concerts. My family needs to leave our home when the concerts happen because it is literally too loud to think. I really appreciate the idea of being able to soften the bells. And so whether it's overnight, whether it's for the concerts, but I think it is appropriate for people, if you haven't been there, to see how loud those bells really are. I don't understand a discernible purpose for them to ring at midnight or 1 or 2 in the morning. I'm not sure for whom, other than a sense of history and nostalgia. Who are we hoping hear those bells at that time of the day? I can tell you that it interrupts sleep regularly in our household, and especially when you are not feeling well. I have heard from many folks around the area that the bells are noticeably louder. So I think any conversation we have needs to also include the volume of the bells. And I think this is an opportunity to ask the question of why. Hey, I love history. In some ways, I hear from many people who live about a half a mile away from the bells, how wonderful they are. And I think that's fair. I think it is. There is something quaint about them ringing. But I'm glad to hear that Jane also notices the very big difference in the volume of the sound. So I think if we're talking just about the chiming the hour, I think our preference would be to have them ring during the daytime, but even to explore during the daytime whether or not the current volume level is the appropriate level. I think the question is, when they chime at the hour, who are we expecting to benefit from that and why? And I'm not saying that we shouldn't, but how far away do we want someone to be able to hear those chimes? And so even during the day, we would request that the volume be dampened.
I would be okay even with a nod to the historic where we rang them once a day at noon, maybe at full sound because that way the whole town can hear them. And the rest of the day, let people live in peace. I mean, I think that the point of, the middle of the night thing, I do not understand. And I think we've clearly had this discussion before because the DC interruption was not something that was in the original mechanism. It was something that was kind of glommed on after the fact. But I think it's nice that they play once a day, but I think at high noon, I don't think we have too many people working third shift in this town anymore. So I'm not too worried about that interrupting their shift. I think high noon is a wonderful, I'm not talking about the children chime now. We're just having a discussion on the bells on the hour. But yeah, that's my opinion.
And yes, the hour striker can be adjusted up, down the rate. I know the rest of the, I'm not sure about the rest of the bells, how much adjustable. Those are actually on the physical plane of the bell as far as the concerts, but I do know the striker can be adjusted and they recommended if we wanted to program it. I mean, all these options are available if we go to an electronic control.
You gotta go electronic, that's not it.
Yeah.
I believe, when this thing was built, most people didn't have watches or cell phones and stuff, so it served a real purpose when it was built. But now it's like, who doesn't have a cell phone? Who doesn't have a watch? Who doesn't have a?
One last thing I did want to add was that I do, on the electronic option, one of the things I like about that as well is that I do think if we're going to have the bells sound, that having them be accurate and keeping up with them is important. And my experience of living there for 11 years is that during time changes and power outages, the ability to get those bells back on the right schedule. And as someone who, quite frankly, gathers in that church sanctuary for worship that starts on an hour and ends on an hour, having the bells ring at 25 minutes past the hour is not an effective option. So I think the electronic option also hopefully might make it easier for when we need to adjust them or change them to be able to keep up with them.
And fixing the clock would be the electronic clock too. It works, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so even fixing the clock is gonna get it up to date, so you can just, like any other clock, not climbing up the outside, turning the hand to be able to do it from inside and set the time, so. Especially when you change the time, you don't want to ring it 12 times at 11 o'clock. Okay, so
Someone else has a question.
Couple.
Very briefly, my name is Don Rogers. I'm the chairman of the trustees of the First Congregational Church. The trustees are responsible for the church, the grounds, the maintenance, operations, the manse, having a good place for the pastor and his family to live. Currently, he has a 9-year-old boy. In the summertime, I don't know if it could be damp enough to not wake up a 9-year-old after they go to sleep. So we're strongly in favor of not having the bells ring at nighttime.
I mean, that's pretty much given, I believe, and I can go with this to noontime ringing just to,
Thank you.
it's an option.
I know,
Just one friendly point for Pixley Hill Road, for historical purposes. The last 30 years, we've had 2 ministers' wives leave the area because they couldn't live with the bells ringing to the dance. So, no, yeah, that's true. One was a short-term minister, another one was a 10-year minister, and his wife finally left the area, so. Just, it was that much of a bother for them.
Okay. We weren't selecting then, so we had nothing to do with it.
I would offer one more comment, which is to speak in favor of occasional scheduled concerts on the chimes.
no, that's the next discussion.
Okay.
Yeah. So what do you think of like a noon, once a day, ring away?
I think the only decision right now is that you want me to go to a programmable.
Go to programmable
And then we can figure out.
We made everyone come in. I think we should have a tentative schedule on the bells, once it's programmable. I'm not the bells, on the chime, on the clock, on the hour chimes.
I think it's something like a float, it could be, changed at any time, so we can start with the noon time and if people want more or less, they can come in the meetings and stay there.
I guess Patrick,
Saying I want to make a motion.
what are we starting with?
I want to make a motion. We start with
Once a day.
noon and once a day at noon, at a decibel level that is reasonable for the neighborhood or loud. I think once a day we can live with it, I would assume, and that would be my preference. And then we always change it in the future, but we have a starting point of what our goal is,
Or perhaps we do just the 8 to 3 or 8 to 5, sometime between the hours of work,
Working day.
like a working, because they are beautiful. And that wouldn't disturb sleep or activities.
You can decide that. I think the first thing is getting electronics in. That's gonna take a while, I believe, right?
Yeah, I'll get on
And
that.
cost,
As far as
right?
how long it'll take to get the equipment and then get it
Because we gotta vote
installed.
on it.
And the
at
cost.
The town meeting, so it'll be July. Or
Let me
might-
find
unless we
out.
have
It might
money.
not be. It might be something we could take. We do have some gift account money and some other money. It might not even take an appropriation.
And then we can see how low we can get the bells to sound. Then that might make the difference in how often we sound them. If we can get them a lot lower,
Right.
maybe do it more. If you can't, do it less.
Because John mentioned that we can make it less, we can turn it down.
For the tolling, I'm sure that's
Yeah.
true, yes.
Yeah.
You know, and then we determine, start with the noon time, if you want to add more or less, knowing how much it sounds and how much it bothers the people next to it. And we can make that decision and change anytime.
I was, because I'm appreciating what Patrick is asking for. It would be nice to leave here and at least have a starting point, because you've said a number, we can change it at any time. Can we at least get agreement that they're not gonna toll overnight?
Well, we're not going to toll overnight. I mean,
Okay, because-
we'll make, I would make the agreement now that,
Okay, okay.
past, I don't want to say a certain time, but I can't see him playing. There's no reason to play him during the night.
Okay.
I do think, I really appreciate the direction that this group is taking, and I do think it will be interesting to see when the technology's in and the ability with the volume. I think, as Jamie was saying, that will be a major factor into how often they are, tolerable to hear, or that they are helpful to hear. So I really appreciate the support and the way that this is going.
It is if we can get into play during the day, softly, I think it's a great thing for tourists too. They come out of the cities and stuff and they appreciate that. It's part of their, but we're gonna do it for the townspeople and more for the tourists. So, but it is a attraction for the tourists to hear the bells.
So we're gonna get the thing in, see what we can do with it, then come back and decide what the plan is.
Yes. I'll propose a
So
plan.
there's no playing until.
Except we're not at night. We want it programmable and able to dampen the striker for the hourly tone.
Yeah, but in terms of them, restarting, we're gonna figure out the technology, get installed, then.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Everybody comfortable with that?
So basically, not playing for now until we figure it out.
Well,
Okay.
they don't work now anyway.
It was binding up and we were afraid it was actually going to snap. So it's been
They're off.
off, yes.
The second part is Andrea Goodman, who's here, has been working with Bruce. Is Bruce on the call? Bruce, are you out there?
He said he was going to be.
He had a.
Yeah, it's on the screen.
Oh, yeah. I can't see behind everyone.
I'm here.
Oh, yeah. Hi, Bruce. So Bruce and Andrea have been working on a plan to get back to the, sort of apple blossom to apple drop or whatever it's called, tradition. But we really have kind of the same issue, which is that sort of over that roughly 100-day period, is it daily? Is it once a week? Is it twice a week? What is the duration of the Little Children Chime concert? So I don't know if Bruce, you've been kind of lead on this, and Andrea, I mean, I would suggest that we hear from Bruce as the kind of dean of the bells or of the concert.
Wait,
So the long time practice is that the bells ring for 30 minutes every day, 7 days a week from June 1st through Labor Day. And then that's it. They don't play any other time of the year.
They play what?
play what?
They
Children's
play
chimes.
children's music. They're the children's chimes. So they play folk songs, children's music. It's pretty basic.
All right. Some
And what
AC/DC.
time of the day is that played?
I don't know.
That plays from 5:30 to 6, or we could play with that a little bit, but that's what we've always done.
All right.
It could be shortened.
Or could be even changed to Saturday
Yeah.
at noon.
Yeah.
It could
And
be
have
the
the kids
weekend.
meet there on Saturday at noon and play it just for the Saturday.
It's only
But-
11 notes. It's not very sophisticated.
Yeah, but for an hour.
But I always think,
No,
11
it's 30, it's
30
30
minutes?
minutes. It's
Yeah,
30 minutes. a
30
day.
minutes.
It's really fun for kids to do. I've done it.
Yeah, But I mean, every night, it's every night.
Every
feasible, or you
day?
think a Saturday
Okay.
noontime or Saturday would be better.
I don't know, Chuck. Somehow the town survived over 100 years of this,
Yeah, I know. Yes,
like you did.
I'm up, I couldn't hear where I live.
wait, I think Pastor has something.
I had a turnpike for black and white
I
noise.
think
Yeah.
Pastor,
So I just want to offer a couple of observations just as you work on this project and I think there is something beautiful about the idea of it. I think there is so two observations or three observations maybe that we have had in the 11 years of living there. Then the number of people, if you play every day of the week, the number of people who are able to play and play well is very variable over our time. And where that shows up, especially given the limited notes that you have to play, can mean that you hear Three Blind Mice, Mary Had a Little Lamb. And I get that sounds really quaint. And yet when they're not played well and they're played over and over again every day for 1/2 of an hour. And I don't say this to be, but we literally, our family for many years when they were being played actively would have to leave our home. I'd invite you over to our home to hear what it sounds like in our home when they're playing in the summer because windows are open. And so I guess I would invite us to again ask the question of why and what do we hope for from them? I think there could be, in my experience, there are very few people who actually come to sit and listen. And I wonder if that's because they are every day. I don't have a suggestion to make other than to think about how do we balance understanding what the purpose is, because there can be something really quaint and beautiful and nice about these tunes coming out from that tower. And they could be a nice thing for both town members and tourists to come listen to. I think the question is to ask why do we want to do it? How do we recruit and equip the people who are capable of playing it and playing it well?
We got the plan for that though.
And for how long every day? If we're going to do it every day, how long every day do we need to do it to both honor history and tradition and respond to the people who are here? So I would love to be part of any conversation to explore those variables. I don't have an axe to grind or an agenda to play out, other than to say that that ends up being 3.5 hours of continual bell music. And if it's just one octave of bells and just children's music, with all due respect, that becomes pretty repetitive pretty quickly over the course of an entire summer.
Mhm.
So I think how we do it and why we do it matters.
One more technical.
I like you.
Technical possibility. Thank you. I like you too. I know your name. One more technical possibility is that all of the bells have electric strikers. Is that true?
No,
It's not.
no, the playing bells are played mechanically
It's an
Um,
instrument.
through the instrument and based it in the way that the chimes were designed to be played originally.
With
So,
with the lever.
with the levers that are on the playing platform upstairs. So,
Can that volume be adjusted if they're played manually?
no, they're,
By the player.
yeah. So,
Children playing still. That's,
No.
I just wanted to address some of the things that Brett said, which is, I grew up next door to the Chimes, and Mr. Gray used to play them every evening, and there were a lot more children in town, and we would go there. And he, it wasn't about making beautiful music, it was about having an experience for the kids, and he used to let us up and play, and it was pretty cool to pull down these huge things and ring these bells, but I totally understand what you're saying, and I don't think it has to happen every night, but I think that the spirit of it was not, we're making beautiful music, the spirit of it was a gathering place for kids and a little event.
That makes sense. And that's a different why, right?
Yeah,
So understanding the why.
And then maybe once a week
No,
on
I
a
think
Saturday or
noon
Sunday
would
in
be
the
A
afternoon
good option.
when children aren't
Or
in
noon.
school.
Well,
and
the
they
kids
can-
are in
they're-
between sports and.
It's the summer, no kids are in school.
That's true.
So I'm
course,
kind
I
of
think-
feeling like there should be a middle ground here, maybe.
Well, we
Um,
could, nothing's being set tonight on it, so we gotta
Right,
do some
right.
discussion on this one.
I think maybe one day is a little too infrequent. I was thinking maybe Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or weekend days. I think that there's balance on all things, but it is a draw, and you're more likely to get, where there are, families with children in the area, if not right in downtown as we used to be. I think on a weekend day, you're more likely to get people to, commute from,
There are actually quite a bit of kids now at that end of Main Street and on Church Street. There's a good dozen of them
Yeah.
right around
Right.
that.
Right.
area.
So,
do it a couple times a week, then it's more likely there'll be a destination event rather than, at the commonplace, you can.
would changing the time to like 3:30 and get away from supper time. If you do it a couple of times a week, make a difference.
Oh, I see. That's a good point.
And then the high school kids will be there too.
And bring ice cream from.
There you go.
Now you're in a whole different permitting process. It'd be great, but.
So I have a suggestion.
We're not going to make everyone happy.
We have two folks who've been working on some ideas, Bruce and Andrea. Andrea is the head of Canalita Choir, who's working on a proposal for the town to consider. And I would suggest that anybody who's interested in having a brainstorming session with the two of them, exchange numbers, get together, and maybe at the next meeting, come back with some more specific ideas. As the chimes the children's chimes could be played at any time now. And we are just around the corner from when we were set to start. So I think this is a conversation, unlike the clock where we've got to install new technology, this is a conversation we should have right now and come up with a plan where maybe there's some consensus. So I propose we punt it to them.
Yes. Sounds good. So I'll make a motion.
Say one.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, Andrea Goodman, I live in Lennox, I'm sorry.
Do you hear him up there?
I saw that there's a new saint from Lennox, from that person who was a Hawthorne. Yeah, that cottage in Lennox. Sorry, did I say that out loud?
My husband, well, that's the box on the left, middle, second row there.
You laughed.
Anyway, the idea was to resurrect the 5 to 5:30, I thought, or 5:30 to 6. And in order to make sure that the children are getting involved, you have specific days called demo days, like at the end of the Memorial Day parade. One day, have them line up, they come in and try it one at a time for a half hour or 45 minutes. And then do that several times, maybe 3 or 4 times, but that will be listed in the paper through a press release. So that there are times, but I understand your pain about having people play that, it's not so great. I propose that I would oversee all of the people volunteering or playing, and guarantee that certainly that they get played every day. And secondly, that I would, sort of audition in a way, anyone who wanted to come in and play, they would have to just see about doing this for like 5 or 10 minutes to make sure. But at least you have the quality there. If I oversee it and I'm actually going to be doing the playing. I have a doctorate in music from Cincinnati Conservatory of Juilliard. And I would come in and do this, and that way there's a guarantee of quality and a guarantee of that it's happening. So people don't rush over there and nobody's playing them, that would be horrible. But, definitely to get the community involved by announcing ahead of time when these public sessions are, that we could then come in and try it out. So
they couldn't come up they couldn't come up to try to have.
Well, they could come up and watch, but those particular times, the 5 to 5:30 or 5:30 to 6, no, they wouldn't be playing them. They'd be playing the designated times unless, there was such an interest that we'd have to add additional time. I was even thinking of giving them maybe a 10-minute tryout before 5 o'clock or 5:30, just to have them come up just to see what they feel like, which is fine for me, but you may not. I don't know. But I definitely would want to have these public announced, 4 sessions to see 3 or 4 sessions during the summer to get people officially that this is the time. Put a sign, they have to wait outside one at a time, come up and try everything.
Why couldn't you do it the way Mr. Gray used to?
Yeah, it was sounded fun. I mean, kids just came
Yeah.
up and then he would play some songs and then he'd have a kid help him play songs.
Well, that's wonderful. I don't mind doing that. And by the way, I do teach music at St. Agnes Academy and have 110 students from pre-K through 8th grade. That's fine, but that doesn't solve the quality issue and that doesn't solve the problem of guaranteeing that they get played between 5 and 5:30.
Well, so who's,
Can I butt in here for a second? I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think Nina's sort of getting to the point of this in some ways. This is really a community building event also when we ring these bells. It's about all of us getting together around something that has meant something to Stockbridge since the 1870s. And we just spent almost $700,000 to make this happen, to get these bells back. We haven't rung them in 6 years, which is why we're kind of in this lull and people aren't used to it anymore. So I really think we should give it a shot as it once was by playing them every day for a while and then see what people think and take it from there. I would like to go back to the way it's always been done. That, I'm traditional that way, but I think it could be more of a community thing along the lines of what Andrea is talking about also, because she's going to formalize it a little bit and give people an event to come to at times. And I think that will help also. But I'm willing to compromise also in terms of the schedule, because I think that as much as I want that to happen, you got to recognize that there are people who don't want this all the time. So, and they're living close by, and it's affecting the quality of their lives. So I get it. So I think that a little more talk and maybe a compromise, and we can figure it out.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Bruce, and thank you. And I think I want to ask the question about, even when they were ringing every day, living there, it would be incredibly rare that anyone would be there. Now, maybe that's because there wasn't a good schedule. Maybe that's because they weren't playing really well. But Deb Wiswesser and her friend Mary would be the only 2 I would ever see sitting on that bench. And so I appreciate the idea of saying we want to make this a community thing. I also would ask that we send out notices to the other neighbors who live in the area. I also would ask people, I would be interested to see how we can train people in terms of the volume. Again, I don't know how far you're designed to hear these concerts, but I would really invite the select board. I'm happy to serve you cocktails. I'm happy to serve you appetizers, whatever. But I do think it's important. This becomes a sort of theoretical exercise for a number of people. I really think if we're going to commit to playing those bells for 1/2 hour every single day in the one season that actually brings most people here happiness and joy, I would really ask that people come and hear what that sounds like from in Jane's house. I don't want to invite them to your house, but in my mouth, and really get a sense for it. And again, Andrea, I love the idea of bringing good quality music there. I think my question would be, do we really need a half an hour? And maybe that's in the deed, so maybe we do. But do we need that long? How do we make sure that it's good? And if it's about community engagement, how do we both try to stoke it and then measure it and see, are we really getting community engagement, and what's the best way to do it? So I would love to be part of those conversations. I promise to be open and flexible, and I would ask people to really come and experience what those bells sound like for a full half an hour.
Okay, so I think what we'll do is you guys get together and talk this out and come up with an agreement and then come back to us on that
Right.
part.
But if I
Sounds good.
Yeah, hang on, go ahead, Mike.
If I can make one point, because I hate to say it, in my 25 years of municipal service, I've run into a lot of these issues with sound and complaints of neighbors and sound. And while we should be sympathetic, such as at night and other things, there also should be a recognition that the chime tower was built to be a playable instrument. Like I said, I've dealt with issues like around airports where people say, oh, well, you know, if you invite everybody, there has to be an understanding that the role of the chime tower is to be played as a musical instrument for the children of Stockbridge. That's where we got to start from. We can make some
But
concessions,
could it be
but it has to.
3 times a week? I mean, we're not going to stop.
Understanding that,
But
you know, you live near a chime tower and the chime tower is back in use. That's
yeah,
part of the reality of what you bought near. And we, like I said, we can make accommodations. We can
Okay.
try to be,
Okay.
Right.
but on the other hand, playing a half an hour each day on that.
Come here and play half an hour loud outside. I don't mean to be.
So come to my son's house and sit beside the railroad tracks and the train goes by. I understand that those complaints can happen.
And again, for
And
what purpose? The airport and a train serves transportation purposes. This should serve an aesthetically pleasing purpose. And if it's not serving an aesthetically pleasing purpose, and we need to ask the question of why and for how far radius.
like I said, it might have been a little bad guy thing to say, but we need to look out for the whole community, not.
Yeah, right, but I'd like to support the pastor that every day sounds maddening. Absolutely maddening. I live on Church Street. I can't imagine that I have to bear this after teaching children all year, that I'm gonna listen to music half an hour every day, all summer. That's unreasonable.
I mean, I would almost think
I think a
that
few days
if it's-
seems joyful.
if it's,
Every day sounds a burden.
if it's less time in scheduled time, you might get more people coming at those times than if it's every night.
Yeah.
You get a bigger group. That's maybe, I might be wrong on that, but
But the three of you or
So
four of
let's-
you are going to get together and talk about it and come back to us on the 18th. I think that's a great idea.
and I'll make a motion that we go with electronic thing and get that going. Start off with just noontime and take it from there, get the sound to a certain thing. And then have another meeting, see if we want to go like 9 to 3 or something like that. It's an option, but just start off with the noontime, then take it from there.
Second.
Those in favor? Aye. Okay, but you guys got to stay for the, now you got to stay for the budget.
But the really interesting part starts now.
Or the minutes. Still the minutes. yeah.
Okay, let's take action on the minutes of the March 21st, 2024.
Take those. Second.
Can we do this next time?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, aye.
Okay, let's go with the warrant review.
Budget review?
Either one, we want to do first.
All right. So the only change to the budget from the last time that we met was that I met with the Chamber of Commerce. So there were some concerns over how that was calculated, we come to that budget. It's been 10%, whether on the preceding year or on estimates, however it's put together. After discussion with them, I think it's better that we proceed with just an annual appropriation similar to what other departments are getting. So about a 2% increase to their budget
Say it again.
Which,
for the chamber. So that with a 2%
Yeah, we
increase,
already-
they can plan
okay.
on their expenses going forward instead of being linked to a 10%.
Plus,
That changes every year to, they don't, at least I know what they're getting.
Yeah, this would give
That
them
fluctuates.
right, yes, yes.
and the percentages may be changing too. It's better. this time.
Percentages, if the governor's
Yeah.
vitalization could change, which would adjust. So that's the only change to the budget. So unless you had other questions to the budget.
Many,
What's that?
many?
Many?
yes. I would first like.
Or the budget,
I
right?
would like to first, all my questions on the warrant are related to the budget, so I feel we can just. I'd like to have an OPEB discussion before we put that to bed.
All right.
We hadn't talked about it as a group. He literally turned to you at the joint meeting and said, you seem to agree, and you guys seem to agree, and I would like to at least raise some issues. My first issue is this. School district as of 2020, and it's gone up higher, has a $68 million OPEB liability, 68 million. Our share of that is about 25%. And I want to know what the plan is for anyone who opposes
Can
these
you not
tax.
raise your voice?
What?
Can you keep your voice down?
Why, was I raising my?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to know what the plan is to deal with the giant liability, if people feel this is a liability, that the school district has, and what efforts folks have taken to mitigate that liability. Because we are responsible for approximately 25% of that liability. And the point I'm making is that Berkshire Hills Regional School District is 3 towns.
No, but it was my understanding we are not responsible for the school's OPEB.
Town's taxpayers are responsible. We pay the budget, the operating budget for the schools every year.
That's right. Oh,
But the school has their own budget.
It's a line, the first line item of the warrant.
Yeah.
It's, you know, yeah.
So
How-
in regard to, right, what would happen if the OPEB, if the school, regional school district dissolved in OPEB, right, where would some of the people fall back to is a question. Yeah.
Has it ever
That-
happened?
Don't, no.
No.
But you asked the same question about the town. The town's not going to dissolve either. We have one of the best, strongest budgets of any town in the Commonwealth, let alone the
No.
county.
Okay,
What has
what-
this got to do with
Where are you
our
going?
end of OPEB for the town?
It has.
We're at 88%. It's not fully funded. I don't think that we dip into it and because it's a slippery slope. You start pulling money out and then all of a sudden it's gone.
On that 3.8 million, we're going to make,
Our town is fiscally
can I finish my
healthy.
sentence?
Sure, sorry.
On the 3.8 million, we, this year, I believe we made around $300,000 on it. The original plan, which was a compromise, by the way, it's only a portion of the expenses, was $81,000. I believe that overall, the total number was 141 or something, you know.
139 to fund all retirements. If we just looked at the Medicaid and Medicare, it was $83,000.
83,000.
83.
Right, on a fund that is making $300,000 and a fund that was funded by and large by the existing taxpayers through their OPEB payments in the last 10 or 12 years. So, you know, the question now becomes to me, at what point do the benefits of that excellent savings on the behalf of the town accrue to the town rather than some amorphous time somewhere in the future where frankly, most of the taxpayers who paid into this are long gone and in the grave in the Stockbridge Cemetery, all right? And I just would suggest to you that this was the compromise. And if there was such concern over OPEB liability, we should have been addressing it with our share of the OPEB liability for the school district. But of course, we didn't do that because they pay it out of the annual operating expense like every other town in the Commonwealth does, you know, and every other school district does.
So I don't see the connection.
Either do I. And I also feel like that is a prudent reserve of money. And we have other needs in our town, like bridges, we have roads, we have other needs. And this is a savings account. In about 4 years, we'll be 100% funded. Then we can siphon off all of the interest, which will be much greater and we will not be dipping into our savings.
Can I respond to that?
Of course.
All right,
can
if
do
you
it
want to
if you
save money, I think that's a great idea. When you put money in the OPEB trust, it can only be used for future other post-employment benefit uses. You want to put 140,000, you want to take the 81,000 in from that we were proposing and turn around and put it into free cash or into the reserve fund. I'd be more than supportive of that because then we have the flexibility to spend it however we want rather than what we're doing here, which is we're literally scoring something away for 2035 or 2052 or something that makes absolutely no sense to me. Nobody funds this and we funded 88% of it. And at what point is it arbitrary and capricious to suggest we have to be at 100 in order to get a benefit out of this? And the way you save taxes for taxpayers is 1% at a time. And pulling that 81,000 out reduces the raise and appropriate approximately 1%. And believe me, I got another dozen that we can talk about if you want to be here all night, because I went through the budget in detail over the last couple of days. So this isn't unreasonable. And this rewards the folks who put into it. We're doing such a good job while at the same time figuring out a way to keep the budget down. The budget increase was only 1% last year and already we're up at around 5, right?
No, I don't
What's
think
that?
that's true.
Budget increase this year is around 5%, 5.4, 5.2.
5.4.
Yeah, so to
Yeah.
get it down back under 5%, and I just feel like, it's absolutely prudent. And
You know, after listening to the finance committee and their points of view and stuff. And I think I gotta go with, and what they're recommending and not touch it at this point.
then I want to vote on it. Make a motion, I'll vote against it. Otherwise, I'm not supporting this entire thing. Be on the record.
Yeah, I'll make a
Okay.
motion that we don't dip into the OPEC.
I'll second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Okay.
Next.
Can I ask a few other questions?
Yeah.
All right. Let's move this on, right? Okay, so let's see, you want to pay the remaining balance on the bond anticipation note for the highway trucks. What's the current rate on the bond anticipation note?
I thought we were using free cash for the trucks.
Yeah, we have
Paying off-
payments of,
paying off.
50,000 left in this year and next year. And this would allow us to just pay it off, lift it off the tax rate immediately. And that, the bond rate, we have to go out every year on the new bond. I mean, that's not a bond, that's a note. So that's an annual state house
I
note.
was wondering what the interest rate was.
I would expect it's gonna be about 5.5.
No, but this is an existing bond.
What do you?
No, it's an existing note.
It says remaining
No,
balance. I know.
Michael,
No,
you did
Oh, did I say remaining balance of the bond? I
Yeah.
should
You
say
pay it
no.
off. I thought you did last.
No, we paid off the bond on the town hall.
Oh,
no, I'm talking about number 3.
Yep.
Number 3 on the
All right,
highway
on the
trucks.
warrant, yes.
I'm just wondering what the existing interest rate is on that we're going to pay off the remaining balance of the note on. I mean, approximately, you don't have to know that. Is
No, I believe it's about 5. No, that one you have to, that is a state house note. So every
2%,
year
right?
you get a new note. You don't, so on borrowings of under 5 years, you're doing notes.
Right, but is it-
individual notes each year.
Oh, I see. So it's
Yeah.
variable rate.
Yeah, it's
Is
not,
Up in the
long-term bonds would be lot, we're probably looking at about 5.
Okay,
Yes.
all right.
I was trying to find, because I actually have the number.
Most
So
of it has
the
to be-
payoff is like 98,000 and something.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um,
We'll end up saving about $2,000 by paying it off.
and the 500,000 for bridge reconstruction, that is just in general. That
In
just
general, just to
puts it
begin.
back into the kitty for the bridge.
Yes, as we get engineering, other stuff all done. Glendale. they have a number two.
I know. I just want to make sure I just want to know. On Article 10, it says, various water main replacements. Should that say sewer, not water?
No, that,
Yeah, 11 is water, 10 is sewer.
we-
10 is
not
sewer.
11.
10 is sewer, but 10 number 1 says water, and I'm just wondering if it should say sewer.
What do you?
sorry.
10.1 on the warrant. I know we're not on the warrant yet.
Oh,
10
sorry.
point- Oh, I
Yeah,
see.
It says, yeah, to see if the town will transfer some of money from available sewer surplus in the first transfer appropriate.
Oh, sorry. Yes, thank you, Patrick.
Yeah.
You're right. That should say sewer main replacement. Yes. My fault,
Wait.
sorry.
No,
So-
water
And I
main.
realize I have an article.
Oh,
It's okay. I just wanted to make sure it was
Draft,
accurate.
right. Yep.
but it is a draft.
Yeah, no, but this is why we're here to do this.
Yeah.
Yes. I was on the budget and you switched over
I
to.
mean, it's a typo. It was a copy and paste typo. I get it. Yes.
Yep.
And I guess the question I have is on number 3 and number,
3.
on Article 10, number 3 and Article 10, number 7, these are all budget related, which is why I'm asking. This is what I went through. You want to, take 41,000, to reduce rates on water.
No, it's a sewer.
I'm sorry, sewer, and 64,000 on water. Okay. And can you just walk through why we're not using that for capital, for the capital funding?
Right, so we don't have an enterprise fund, so we're not allowed to, so this came up as an issue last year, that basically we need to, so you take whatever excess or surplus remaining from the year before, and you must appropriate that for capital items, or it goes back for the calculation of this.
We're paying 138,000 on capital items already. And the question I'm asking is why we're not doing 180,000. Our rates are much lower than surrounding towns already. And you're going to create the whole smoothing issue. If you lower the rates now, then when you don't have that money in there, they're going to go up a whole lot more the next year.
But doesn't this help the people this year?
So we identified the costs that they were looking at for various items and then carried over the remaining balance on it. If what you're doing is recommending to take.
No, I'm asking a question.
It is putting it toward it, which keeps it, remember, we have a flexible range of between 85 and 100%. That if our expenses to income is within that range, that we're not gonna have to increase or lower the rate. So this would keep both those within that range. So at this point, we wouldn't have to make an adjustment. But you're right, in future years, depending on as things get a little tighter, because of what we've done with the budget now, that we're not going to be developing the surpluses we had before. But, I asked them to submit their capital items. Those were the ones that they submitted, which left after taking those out, those were the balances remaining, which by the statute, the water and sewer is under the surplus from the year before must go back to rate reduction unless appropriated for a purpose.
But that helps our townspeople.
Yes, it does.
Right, so I think that's a good thing.
It'll allow us to keep the rates where they are
Right.
at this point, and then next year, if we end up with still a surplus of some money, then we'll be able to.
But the longer term picture of the next several years is that we may have proposals in front of us to expand water and sewer, which may be supported via the general capital fund of the town, not specifically just from the rates. And in that.
That's a whole separate debate.
It is,
Yeah.
but nevertheless, the point I'm making is that many people in the town aren't on water and sewer. And when we start lowering the rates that came in from the system and then potentially augmenting funding from general fund for worthwhile projects that I support, by the way, there's a little bit of a disconnect in my mind why, if we start looking at.
So we can't be setting aside this money for down the road. These
Yeah,
are
it
for
has to be
projects that are
this
going to
year.
happen
We have to follow the rule to do it
right
this year.
now. So these are the projects we're proposing for next year.
Yeah.
So,
Can't carry it.
yeah,
Yeah.
we can carry over.
Or we lose it,
Right.
right?
No.
You
In
don't-
trouble.
The section of law that we are
Cool.
incorporated
But
under
but
says
yeah, that's what I
money
mean, we'll
not
lose it.
appropriated
No, you go to
must
jail.
be
You'll be
used
chairman.
for this purpose because this money was paid by the sewer users and by the water users. And
And I'm just shocked that Tony and Mike can't come up with another $100,000 in needed repairs that they can plow that into. But if you're telling me they can't, I'll live with it. I am just
They're
telling you.
smart men, they know what they need,
yeah,
right?
yeah, I mean, if the request is from the select board is to go back and reapprove this, and part of it does keep it within this return of money will not trigger a rate reduction or a rate increase. It's actually going to keep the rate stable. So,
I'll leave it as.
Just asking a question.
yep.
The 5 these new hydrants or replacement hydrants under 12.1?
Replacement.
And we've confirmed that they have water pressure and all that?
We still have to have active water. Even though they're referred to as fire hydrants, whether or not hydrants you need them to flush the lines, you need them to.
Can they be old and rickety and flush the lines? If they can't be used for structure fires, then, I guess the question I'm asking is,
I would have to bring Mike in to answer that one specifically. These are hydrants that need to be replaced, in his opinion. Because what you're gonna end up with is as the seals and other stuff go, you can have a water line break. So at the hydrant itself, which I've actually experienced and those are good, so.
why is, under, Article 13, number 21, the last one? Why are we reappropriating, why are we appropriating a reserve in the full 10% for each category when we've appropriated money in each category above?
That's language you just have to have every
Yeah,
year.
but the amount is 10%. You have to do at least 10% across those project types. And we have more than 10% in many of the project types.
You're not thinking of that in the right way. This is just saying that the new money that comes in, at least 10% will go into each category.
In the
I
future.
understand that we are already
All right, I got it.
appropriating. It is a legal requirement for us to do.
And why is Article 14 for fiscal year 24?
Because in fiscal year 24,
We forgot one.
we did not pass that article at town meeting.
Okay,
So
and,
while it was CPC approved and it's on the books for CPC, it was not approved.
and is there some reason why, I mean, can we can go back and
You can
approve?
do the current year and the upcoming year.
Okay.
In your,
All right,
in your
that's
annual
fine.
town meeting.
That's how you want it.
Once you're beyond that, it is what it is. So yes, this is a correction for FY '24.
Got it.
And if we don't do it now, it can't come back.
Article 19 in Ice Glen has one N.
Yes, I already fixed that.
Okay. Article 19, let's see, and the Mary Hopkins Goodrich Bridge, is it AKA the Memorial Bridge?
So it's listed as
Because everyone calls it the Memorial Bridge, just saying.
it's the Mary Hopkins Goodrich Bridge. That's the name,
The real
the
name?
technical name that's on everything I've seen.
Okay.
So whether they've
On the bridge itself, it says the Memorial, okay.
right, so I'll understand which bridge.
We all know what we're talking
about. The report done by our engineers on what work needs to be done and the rest. So this is one that we spoke about. I wanted to go over this one when we talked about the
I
warrant.
know.
Specifically, we had talked about this during ARPA. One of the questions was who exactly owns, so
Oh, right.
typically on a bridge, whoever owns both ends of the bridge owns the bridge. So if the state owns on one side and the other, it's a state bridge. If the town owns on one side or the other, the town owns it. In case of the Mary Hopkins Goodrich Bridge, one side is owned by the town, one side is owned by Laurel Hill.
It is.
The bridge was put in by Laurel Hill through a donation. So therefore, looking back legally, it is Laurel Hill Association's bridge. The proposal is to turn over the parking lot at the end of Park Street to the town. Therefore, the town would own both ends of the bridge. The bridge would then become the responsibility for maintenance of the town. We identified about 90-something thousand in repairs. We appropriated $100,000 toward those repairs. With this article, we would proceed with those repairs. Those repairs should make the bridge good for the next 20 years. And then we would, the town would have to understand it would now be owning that bridge. So there is a separate piece. I'm going to post the engineering on our website if we move forward with this article, so people can see the engineering work that went into it and the examination of it. And then we would proceed. But it is an understanding by taking this piece, the town would be accepting the gift from Laurel Hill of this parcel.
And
The town would be taking the responsibility of the bridge.
And
we
we talked, you've already talked to them?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah. It's been going on for 2 years.
yeah, yeah.
Then we
Yes, the rest of my,
gain control of the parking on that side of it.
And we would end up with
That
control of the
little parking lot.
parking at the end. So this article would authorize the selectmen to acquire this by gift. That's the only way it would be. So it'd have to be gifted to the town. And then you would be able to, any conditions or terms you deem appropriate. So you'd be able to negotiate with Laurel Hill to get that parcel and have them gifted to the town. So, but we just need to make sure that members of the community understand that they are accepting, that they are
We
accepting.
invested in that bridge already. We put planking and stuff to town.
Right, we've done
Yeah.
some assistance with it and yes, yeah, yeah. Laurel Hill wants to focus on conservation, the trails and the land that they have, not on a physical structure such as the bridge. Other,
I want to go back to budget. I want everyone to be clear that there is an increase in salary for the select board in this.
Yep.
And I think we should disclose that to the public. It goes from roughly 5,500 to 6,500 for the chair and from what, 4,500 to 5,500 for the regular members. And I don't know if we should make that a separate warrant item to discuss if anyone's going to want to discuss. Right now, it's buried in the budget, and I think that that's one of the ones that that sometimes people have opinions on, and that maybe we want to treat as a warrant item. I believe I'm worth it, but nevertheless.
I think it's staying in the budget. It's a budget item.
Okay.
I would leave it in the budget.
Because we gave moderator a raise last
Yeah,
year.
everybody raised every year. We haven't gotten a raise in 30 years, 40 years.
I understand, but it just opens the door. I think that, I would speak in favor of it.
Yeah,
if you-
but it's in the
if you want me
budget.
to.
It's there. They can speak on it, the budget.
But they're not going to reject the budget. Yeah, okay, it's up to you. That's
What do
fine.
you think, Jane?
I think it's okay because we've given everyone else in town hall a raise last year. And I think it's okay. It's not huge.
Anything else?
Yes, on the,
What are we on? Warrant budget,
why is your current salary not reflected in the FY 2024?
because that's what was approved at
Okay.
annual
I
town.
got it. How much of the reserve fund did we spend this year of the 150 last year? That we put in fiscal year 24, the current fiscal year?
How much?
How much of the 150, where are we at? Did we use it?
So right now, the big one is we're gonna need at least 50,000 out of the 150 to cover the compactor because we had to renegotiate in October our price.
Just of the 150, where are we?
Right now, about 65,000 is gonna be needed to close out the year at this point, and we still have 4 more months remaining.
Okay. 3 months, 2.75 months, but yes.
April, May, and June, sorry.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
yes.
So basically we spent about 65 of the 150 this year.
Yeah, we're anticipating that we're gonna need to close out right now. So one of the things that we began after last year, because we had a bunch of transfers at the end of the year, was I work with the accountant and we are examining what we need to hit sooner. And we began looking at that at the 50% through the year and went, okay, the compactor was the big one we've talked about with that the rates have changed so much. That, we needed to anticipate that one's gonna be tapped this year.
And so, and in past years, has 150 been about right, a little too much or a little too little?
We've had around 100,000 and I want us to get tighter. I'd prefer that we don't have to touch it, because it should be for things that are unusual or unprepared for, such as the compactor, the big jump.
And we brought that down to 100. How much risk does that put us in? Because we haven't been spending.
But we have,
Yeah, it would,
We have a little less, it's a little more risky, but
yeah. I think that the 150 is a nice solid number for an $11 million budget to have a reserve. You're only talking, less than
We don't know what the compactor's gonna be,
1.5%.
we
what's
also,
gonna happen down the road.
So it's not, I think it's a very appropriate number for our budget.
we also had the.
125. You're at 65, 10 months into the fiscal year.
All right.
Yeah, but all it's gonna take is a couple repair. We've ended up having to hit that depending on.
Oh, that's what I'm asking. And since you've been here, how many times have we gotten close to the full?
We've been around 100,000 each year.
Around 100 each year?
Yeah, and we ended up, remember the year before, 2 years ago, we had a lot of surprise vehicle repairs. If you remember, we ended up over.
But it's the numbers at 150. That's my point.
Yeah.
Have we ever gotten anywhere close to 150?
No, but I still think it's a good, solid number for unexpected items that could arise in
Because
the
we had
budget.
the Middle Glendale Bridge this year. Didn't we have to get some money out of free cash? Or did we use a different one?
No, that's a different, so the reserve is 150 in that for unexpected items that
Okay.
might pop up during the year that it was unexpected.
Like a truck
So,
breaks.
Well, beyond just what our normal
Right.
maintenance, if we need something that is unexpected.
Unbudgeted, it's for unbudgeted items that come up during.
Right.
And the big one this
A
year
big
was the jump
storm
in
or-
that.
I'm looking at 150, if
was
you're
the
comfortable with
year
that.
before.
It's not safe.
I am, I think
So my-
That is something you should have a solid number in there. It's not something, yeah.
Yeah,
Because the worst
it's a budget, we've never come close to spending it, and you know what, it's our job to kind of.
Yeah.
Michael's a professional and he's been doing this a long time.
Well, I think you guys have carried that number for a while. I will agree with
It
that.
goes back in the.
But it does go back to free cash, and I just think it is a very safe number. A very safe number based on the budget size that we have to be setting aside.
And Michael's job is to recommend a budget to the three of us, and it's
Yes.
our job to approve a budget.
Yes.
I'm not going to comment on who's a professional at doing budgets at this table. I know I am. And I'm just going to suggest that if we're at 150 and we've never spent it, and once again, every 90 grand is 1% of the budget, the tax increase people are going to see. How about we don't kind of blow these things off and have a quick conversation on every single one of them? It's getting kind of ridiculous. Let's see. But clearly there's no appetite to change that one, so we'll leave that one alone. I would like to understand why the treasurer collector is not bumped at the same rate as everyone else in the budget. And I would like to actually make a proposal that we increase the budget so that she gets the same percentage increase as what I see just about everyone else, including highway, police, and everyone else. And I noticed that was also true for
So you guys, so now we're going, if you remember, we brought forward a plan for what we'd be paying each other with longevity and everything, including town hall employees, which the select board did approve. So some of these things will get adjusted when people hit. You got to remember that some of the adjustments for some people changed based on years of service. So we brought the plan forward. I know like
remember.
Erica's in year 3,
You had
she'll be
made
in
the
year
chart.
4 next year, so.
Right.
And then she'll be in year 5, which will give her a 2.5% bump on top of the cost of living adjustment that'll be built in. So I don't think we should be fiddling with a scale you guys just approved
Right, I
for
remember that.
I just don't understand why so many folks seem like they're, as a percentage, getting a much bigger bump. And is this just
Because
because?
they've been here longer.
we tied in some of the longevity to some of the positions, and yeah, it was. When we looked at that, if you remember, we did it with the unions had come in and asking for percentages on the years of service. And if we did that for the town hall people, somebody like the assessor who's been here 30 years went right to the top of the scale since we developed the scale for each individual position.
All right, that's fine. That was a good answer. Good answer. What about the, on the building inspector expenses? That's funding the open positions that we have for the assistant building inspector?
Yeah, so right now, look like both are going to be filled. And I hope to be announcing by the end of this month who our person is that'll be here and the hours they'll be scheduled. So, yes.
And why is that up roughly from 92 to 140, or 130 rather? 120? Wait, 120. It's up like from 90 to about 120. Across the both line items for building and inspector salaries and expenses.
So are you referring to,
I mean, it's like under public safety, building inspector salaries are going from 87 to 32, so you save 54. But expenses are going from 5 to 89, so it's going up 84. So there's a net difference of a plus 30,000.
so that plus 30, so remember when I told you it wasn't going to cost us more? It's still not, because that 84 that we're paying is benefits too. So we're just paying into Great Barrington a lump sum. And they're the lead town. And if we had hired an inspector, what you didn't see is what would have been the savings in health insurance, retirement, and all that. So that all gets calculated in. So roughly it's 30,000 per full-time employee. So you would have saw if we had not gone in on this
So you're saying somewhere else we have a savings of.
in the health insurance, yes. Yep.
All right,
Yep,
good.
in the health.
Another good answer. All right. Undesignated compensation, 40,000. That's just kind of in case we have a,
Retiree or
something comes up and we gotta fill it. Okay, got it.
something else, yeah.
And what's going on with the Parks and Rec salaries?
So all that's left in Park and Rec now is the payment for, so our janitor here at Town Hall goes up on the weekends does the cleaning of the bathrooms and during the week. Those expenses are still in there as far as the staffing. So we have a janitor at 14 hours for 15 weeks. And then we do our morning cleanups.
This is at the beach you're talking about.
At the beach, yeah. So that just allows us to make sure that the beach is raked every day, 7 days a week. We rake the beach to make sure the goose poop and the rest as best we can is all cleaned up. And that number fluctuates a little, but it's roughly 15 weeks. And depending on who's doing it, it gets some employees an additional overtime of pay, so.
And one last question, on the question of veteran services.
Yep.
That's our share of a regional.
It's the position and then it's part of the regional and then payouts for benefit costs.
Now, how is that calculated?
What's that?
How is that calculated?
So that could be really, it depends on what people put in for and how many veterans we have.
How many do we have?
I'd have to get that for you. I'll get that for you for the next meeting. I know that line item has pretty much stayed stagnant for the last couple of years. Because all of a sudden you can have a person that all of a sudden qualifies for benefits and you end up having,
Do we track a number of, or is it?
They do. I can get the regional report from the person. I was trying to look up exactly what we have in there. Veteran services. So we budget 55,000 and that could be to assist with medical, other things for veterans. A whole bunch of things plus the regional person's salary. So our share of it. So.
Well, that's the question I'm asking. And I know I got into trouble asking this about Tri-Town a couple of years ago, but how is the share determined? Is it just the town split it up?
It's just the town split it up and I believe it's on population.
Okay.
I'll get you the exact
That would
number, because I know, because I'm trying to remember here offhand.
Doesn't we cut it? I'm just wondering how we fund it.
Yes.
It's 50/50. Yeah, because
But we do pay, we pay in for just the veteran agent. Any individual cost that would be incurred that we have to cover for veterans would have to be paid by just us. So each town has to carry money to pay in for veterans benefits. Yes,
that's all I got.
yeah.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
I think you have, I was just gonna say, I think we have
Well, we don't
somebody
have
here.
public speak, do we?
This is,
I think she has a question about the warrant.
Yeah, we didn't go through the warrant.
okay, I'm sorry.
My understanding from the last meeting was you were going to make a decision about whether the position of the tree warden would be elected or appointed, and that was going to be.
Yes.
This is what was said at the last meeting.
Right, so I do have Article 16 and 17, if the board approves the warrant, move forward, that it would place on town meeting, so it's a dual process. One is, it would have to be approved at town meeting to go on to the Tuesday vote. And then Tuesday, there would be a vote to make those positions appointed or elected.
No. No. Monday's meeting,
Monday's
Monday's
meeting,
the
would
town
you have to
meeting.
pass
We
the
have to
article at town
right.
meeting.
and that will make it appointed.
No, that triggers the ballot
To be.
the next day to happen.
So then it would go on the ballot and the people get to vote yes or no.
It's a two-step process for changing elected to appointed.
The other one, I didn't recall that.
Yep. It's a two-step process.
So 17 is tree warden, 16 is town clerk.
Okay, so we put it on the ballot, we put it on the floor, the town votes for it.
Right.
So on the ballots, already on the ballot.
It's on the ballot. If town meeting doesn't pass it, then
It's crossed
it's
out.
mute. And
But if town meeting didn't authorize the ballot, then how would we print the ballots?
it's,
Can we do that?
that's, yes,
Okay.
already talked to legal on this, already got the language and everything. Town meeting has to pass it. It's on the ballot, ready to go, but it wouldn't be authorized. So therefore, if town meeting didn't approve it, it dies there. It could die the next day if it doesn't pass the ballot. So there's a two-step process.
Can I make a comment?
Yep.
I'm not opposed to it being, But I really would, if it becomes an appointment, or even if it stays elected, I would really like the select board to look at and devise a job description.
Yes, we would. We definitely would. Well,
And to look
especially if
at,
it's appointed, it will have a really good job.
look at chapter 87, Mass General Law, to look at DCR's description of the tree warden. And they use words like protection, care, maintenance, preservation, to expand it beyond just pruning and cutting trees.
I agree with that, yes.
Okay, good. I'd also like, I mean, I think the trees on Main Street, the elm street, the elm trees, are really in trouble, need some attention. I don't know where the town stands on that. A lot of them last year looked really stressed. So I'd like the tree warden position to also be addressing those things, to look at the climate changes, the effect of wind, rain, pathogens on trees, to give them some attention. My experience in Great Barrington was we did Tree City USA, we did a tree inventory along with the commissions, and it really made a difference for the shade trees. So to take a look at the whole picture and
You have a draft of said job description?
look at DCR has a beautiful job description. I can give it to you.
Yeah, DCR has one. There's the manual from the Tree Wardens Association. There's a couple different ones.
Yeah, and we know we have to address the average.
That's.
Hey, I'll make a motion, we gotta make a motion, to accept the warrant, correct? With the change, with the, we'll do that next week.
Yeah.
Next
it-
Yes, this is still.
You guys are fine with,
Because we gotta get the finance committee's input.
I'm gonna bring it to the finance committee on next week that right now, the select board is prepared to move forward on all these items. And unless there's something you think we need to change, I'd be bringing this back to you guys at the next meeting for final approval.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Second,
Those in favor?
aye.
Nice.